Hello and welcome to Inside the Americas on France 24. I'm Delon D'Souza. Coming up on the show this week, Joe Biden's foreign policy credentials put to the test as tensions mount in the Middle East. Progressives in the Democratic Party say the time has come to condition aid to Israel. Poverty on the rise in Argentina as the coronavirus pandemic batters the economy. Nearly 42% of the population now living below the poverty line. And we take you to one of the most visited national parks in the United States, known for its striking natural beauty. But first, as tensions between Israel and Hamas mount in the Middle East, pressure is growing on the US president to issue calls for a ceasefire. Progressives in the Democratic Party also say the time has come that the nearly $4 billion in aid to Israel comes with strings attached.
Since his arrival at the White House, Joe Biden has made it clear he wants to turn the page on his predecessor's policies. In diplomatic terms, this means championing human rights. It's music to the ears of the progressive wing of his party, which is particularly vocal about the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. Figurehead Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez has compared the situation to apartheid. She's one of a group of Democrats pushing for Joe Biden to review Washington's unconditional support for Israel's actions.
By only stepping in to name Hamas's actions, which are condemnable, and refusing to acknowledge the rights of Palestinians, Biden reinforces the false idea that Palestinians instigated the cycle of violence. This is not neutral language. It takes a side, the side of occupation.
How many Palestinians have to die for their lives to matter?
On the 12th of May, 25 House Democrats signed a letter calling on Antony Blinken to put pressure on Israel, aiming to prevent the evictions of Palestinians from the Sheikh Jarrah neighborhood of East Jerusalem. For Joe Biden, who favors a two-state solution, it's a difficult balancing act between the left wing and the center of his party, while also avoiding conflict with the resolutely pro-Israel Republicans.
Cette aile gauche au sein du Parti démocrate est aujourd'hui représentée par des jeunes, par des femmes, par des personnes issues de l'immigration de couleur qui ont participé massivement à la défaite de Donald Trump. Et puis il y a les élections partielles au niveau législatif. Donc il faut aussi pour Joe Biden, il lui faut une majorité. Il a besoin donc de ne pas froisser cette aile progressiste-là.
Sending an envoy to the region while blocking all UN declarations calling for an end to the violence. Joe Biden is walking a fine line and hasn't jumped in to try to broker a peace deal as Donald Trump did. While a hot-button issue, the conflict is far from a top priority for the new leader, but its escalation is putting pressure on him to act.
The U.S. Supreme Court has agreed to hear a case about whether the state of Mississippi can enforce a ban on almost all abortions after the 15th week of pregnancy. It will be the first time the conservative majority on the bench will decide a case on the sensitive topic. The court's decision to take up the case has been denounced by supporters of abortion rights. They argue it shows a willingness to gut the landmark precedent set in Roe v. Wade. Catherine Viette reports.
It's a moment the pro-life movement has been waiting for, as the U.S. Supreme Court agreed on Monday to hear a case that could end up curbing abortion rights. The court will consider a Mississippi law that bans most abortions after 15 weeks of pregnancy. However, the landmark Roe v. Wade ruling prohibits states from preventing abortions before a fetus is considered viable or able to survive outside the womb, which is considered to be around 24 weeks. Two lower courts struck down the Mississippi law as unconstitutional. In a statement, Nancy Northup, president of the Center for Reproductive Rights, said alarm bells are ringing loudly about the threat to reproductive rights. The Supreme Court has just agreed to review an abortion ban that unquestionably violates nearly 50 years of Supreme Court precedent and is a test case to overturn Roe v. Wade. This will be the first abortion case heard by Justice Amy Coney Barrett. The Catholic conservative was appointed to the court by former President Donald Trump in 2020 after liberal Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg died. The court has now shifted to the right, with conservatives holding a 6-3 majority. should the court uphold the Mississippi law that would upend decades of legal precedent. It could also open the floodgates for other Republican-led states to enact similar legislation. The White House press secretary reaffirmed the Biden administration's commitment to defending abortion rights.
Over the last 4 years, critical rights, like the right to health care, the right to choose, have been under withering and extreme attack, including through draconian state laws. And the president and the vice president are devoted to ensuring that every American has access to health care, including reproductive health care. As such, the president is committed to codifying Roe.
The case is expected to be heard in the court's fall term beginning in October, with a ruling expected sometime next year.
Chileans voted on electing a body to rewrite the country's constitution. Now, it was a key demand following protests back in 2019. Almost half the voters opted for independent candidates. The symbolic vote is being seen as a rebuke of the ruling right. Chile's president, Sebastián Piñera, said it showed his government was not attuned to the demands and aspirations of Chileans. Now, the coronavirus pandemic has battered Argentina's economy. A large chunk of the population has been plunged into poverty, and today nearly 42% are living below the poverty line. The small middle class is struggling to make ends meet, and some have even resorted to looking for scraps to sell. France 24 correspondents on the ground in Buenos Aires filed this report.
Nicholas and his girlfriend Maria were part of the Argentine lower middle class. But as a result of the pandemic and confinement policies, Nicholas lost his job as a carpenter last year. Living only on Maria's small income was not an option. Like 42% of Argentines are now, they were poor. And in this devastated economy with so few job opportunities and so many unemployed people, exploitation has become the new normal.
The only job I could find was in a cold storage warehouse. 14 hours a day, €4 a day. Yes, that's what I said. Only €100 a month for 6 days a week.
He stuck with it for 2 weeks before deciding to join the informal economy and become a cartonero, which means going through garbage in search of cardboard, plastics, every kind of material that you can recycle and sell.
Hi, would you have some cardboards for me? No, nothing? Thanks. Have a nice day.
A job that developed after the terrible 2001 crisis and its army of declassed citizens. But for Nicholas, it allows him to be his own boss, or his own slave, as he puts it. This new crisis, which has spread all over the country, sometimes brings people together in solidarity. Sometimes it doesn't.
A lot of people despise us. They think we work as cartoneros because we're lazy, because we're ignorant. At first I felt ashamed. It bothered me. Now I don't care anymore.
10 euro cents for 1 kilo of cardboard, 1 cent for one of glass. It's not much, but those prices, as low as they seem, are those negotiated by one of many cooperative organizations that cut down on intermediaries in order to get the best possible conditions for these informal workers. Such victories have become more common since 2001. It was around that time that Matias started to work as a cartonero. He was 12.
It was pretty savage, pretty wild at that time. It was every man for himself. Now we've learned how to stick together, to fight for our rights.
Since 2001, cartoneros have never ceased to exist in Argentina. But as victims of this new and harsh economic crisis, thousands of people have become cartoneros, with new people joining their ranks each month. Like these young people, here for their first meeting. They started working only a few weeks ago. Today, 40% of the Argentine population lives off the informal economy.
Now, the U.S. state of Utah is known for its striking natural beauty and various national parks, including Zion. Last year, it received some 3.6 million visitors, making it the third most visited in the United States. Claire Rush has the details.
It's one of the crown jewels of the U.S. National Park Service. Zion, in the western state of Utah, is renowned for its iconic rock formations. and boasts one of the top 10 best hikes in the world, according to Lonely Planet, the Narrows. This is the second time this hiker has braved the trail.
Amazing, eh? It's Utah rocks. I see why.
Hawaii resident Rick made his first attempt a few years ago, but he was unprepared. This time, he's been able to go much further.
But this is one of the most stimulating, most exciting environments in nature to offer anybody looking for a new adventure.
The 16-mile journey through the Narrows takes 2 days. The route is the river. Flash floods often prompt rangers to close the trail. Rainfall can cause water levels to rise rapidly. There have been several instances of hikers getting trapped and drowning there. For this reason, many opt out of the full hike. These two Californians enjoyed the experience, but weren't well equipped enough to make it any further.
We're the only people that we've seen out this far without poles, so that's, don't BS. There's a reason we're all wet.
Yep. I've done full 360s. I'm like, hello, trying to catch myself.
Yeah.
The cold helps with the pain, let me tell you.
Yeah.
After coronavirus lockdowns and quarantine, many have been yearning to spend time in the great outdoors. For this couple, the hike was worth the wait.
I've been looking forward to this hike for a year due to COVID, because we couldn't get out here. We were supposed to do it last year, and this is just monumental. The most unique hike, and most gorgeous I think I've ever been on.
Other iconic national parks of the American Southwest remain closed, however. Monument Valley, located on the Navajo Nation, is not yet open to visitors. Native Americans are one of the most at-risk groups for contracting COVID-19, and the Navajo tribe has lost more than 1,200 members. The parks lost their foreign tourists over the pandemic, but travel restrictions are also spurring many locals to rediscover their own backyard. Places such as Goblin Valley. This family from the state capital, Salt Lake City, is visiting the park for the first time.
It almost feels like Mars to me, like a different planet. I think you had mentioned that just a few minutes ago too. It doesn't feel real.
The landscape is also beautiful by night. Many come here to stargaze and photograph the iconic rock formations beneath the Milky Way.
That's it for this edition of Inside the Americas. From all of us on the team, thank you very much for watching.
Keep up to date on the latest from the Middle East. We bring you political, economic, and cultural events from the region in this weekly Middle Eastern program.
Middle East Matters, presented by Sanam Chantier on France 24 and France24.com.